Hello, welcome back to my channel. It's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony. Hope you're all doing well as we approach the end of 2021. Today is about 2 p.m. local time where I am on the 29th, a few days here before the new year. So I wanted to check in. I haven't done one of these videos since about late September, but you may have caught my Creating Compatibility series that I did throughout October and November. If you haven't seen that, I would recommend going to see that. It's just a interesting take on different pieces of our charts, etc. And I'd enjoy your feedback on that as well. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about today, I think it's pretty obvious. We're going to talk about the new year, 2022, and what that has in store astrologically speaking, and what we might, see coming our way this year. So there's a lot to get to. This might be a little longer than normal. I'm not sure. I'll try to do this quick as possible, but lots of things to cover. So we might as well just start kind of where we're at now. And so we're exiting 2021. In fact, Venus is retrograde right now. So it went retrograde on the 19th of December, and it's going to continue to retrograde until January 29th. So we're in the midst of a Venus retrograde. And there's Venus right there with the red coloring denoting the retrograde. And I apologize for this scratch on my screen if you're seeing that. I'm not even sure if you can actually see that. Actually, I don't know if it records that at all, but anyway, you can see Venus right there, and it's right there joined with Mercury and Pluto. And so Venus joined Pluto here, and for the last 3 weeks, it's been pretty much within a 1 degree orb of Pluto. And Venus will retrograde back, and then it's going to move forward. It's going to hit Pluto again here in early March. What's interesting is that Mercury actually just entered the shadow zone of its upcoming retrograde, which will be January 14th, right through February 3rd. And so it's also going to make this conjunction with Pluto that's doing now. It'll retrograde and it'll come back and make that same conjunction. That'll be in mid-February, so early to mid-February. So there's a lot going on in this zone here where Pluto and Capricorn is concerned. And that's going to be a big topic of this 2022 year, especially in the United States. Because when the United States was born, especially when the Declaration of Independence was signed, Pluto is at 27 degrees Capricorn. Okay, and Pluto takes a long time to go around the zodiac, and it actually hasn't been back there until now. And so we're going to have what's called the Pluto return. So you might be familiar with Saturn returns. Humans have these in their lives about age 29 or so, then in the mid 50s. And then you might have a third Saturn return in your 80s. But the Saturn returns are very important turning points in a lifetime. But no one gets a Pluto return on an individual basis. But on a larger scale, for a nation, for example, we are actually going to see the first Pluto return for the United States of America. So we will get into that more. I just wanted to note that it's not a coincidence that we are going to have the only three exact conjunctions of Pluto back to where it was at the start of America. They're all happening within 2022. In fact, the first one will be in February, the second one will be in July, and then we'll have one literally about, I think, right around this time next year, like the 28th, 29th of December. That'll be the final one. So 2022 really does have the theme overall of this US Pluto return. And of course, that has implications worldwide with the position of the United States in the world being that it's essentially, a superpower, basically. And Pluto having to do with power and restructuring that power, et cetera, and government having to do with Capricorn energy. And so, really since Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, there's been lots of rumblings. It started with a big financial crisis at the very start of Pluto in Capricorn. And now we've got Pluto coming back to where it was. So the whole theme of the year has this sort of revealing of manipulation, revealing of where the true power has always been in the nation and how that affects the world, et cetera. We know that the petrodollar essentially is kind of the currency of the world. So this could be something where we see the major transformation of that being the truth, right? Where potentially this could be the year that it all ends, where things get revealed and, the position in the world that the US holds might significantly shift through this. But, it's not instantaneous. And if we look at it with a 3-degree orb. That's what I kind of looked at it. It's interesting to know it came within 3 degrees of 27 degrees Capricorn for the first time in March of 2020, and it won't exit 3 degrees from that point. When it's three degrees beyond 27 degrees Capricorn, it won't exit till the end of 2024. So really the 5-year period, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, and 24, that is kind of our transition, our Pluto return transition zone, with 2022 being the peak year. So think of 2020 and 2021 as the buildup, and this year is really the peak. So I know people are tired and exhausted from what these last 2 years have brought to society, to life, etc. But just know that this is the final push for the powers that be, essentially, because that's really what Pluto denotes. And so there's a major transformation in terms of what is powerful, what has power, and that's occurring here. And so the buildup the last 2 years has just been kind of like warming us up to what is inevitably coming, which is a total retransformation of power and structure of power in society, etc. And this goes back to, if you've seen my previous videos on Regulus moving from Leo into Virgo and that restructuring. So this is on a different layer, a different level than that, but it's got some similar themes to it, where the old way, the old guard, essentially is kind of falling apart and being exposed in lots of ways. Okay, so I think there's lots of positive potential in that, but obviously the tension and the negativity that can come from that as well. And I see this Mercury and Venus are conjunct right now, basically, with Pluto. What's happening now is kind of under the surface, and when we get to, and I'm gonna move it over to like early March. Watch what happens when we get about there. So that's March 3rd, plus or minus. Notice how this is, well, Venus will be direct at that point. Mercury will be fully direct at that point, and they're going to be meeting back up with Pluto. So March 2nd, that's even better. They're all at 27. So not only are they back with Pluto in early March, but they are all conjunct. All 3 of the planets are now conjunct the Pluto for the United States of America. So it's literally kicking off the Pluto return with Venus and Mars conjunct. So it's pretty significant. And I think what happens, what comes out in early March, is really already being laid out right now. Okay, so it's like there's something underneath we're not seeing completely, but what is being prepared right now is going to be kind of put out there at that point. What is it exactly? Well, I mean, I think there's also a lot of positive potential. Like I said, one thing that is really interesting about this year as well, we can jump down here to Jupiter and Neptune. So Jupiter, in fact, we go back to today, Jupiter just entered Pisces last night, Tuesday night, the 28th. And that's one of Pisces' rulers is Jupiter. It's a traditional ruler of Pisces, Neptune being the modern ruler. Okay, so Jupiter and Neptune are both related to Pisces, and they're both in Pisces right now. Now, Neptune's been in Pisces since like 2011 or so, and it's going to be there for a few more years. But Jupiter moves through there once every 12 years. But the last time that Jupiter and Neptune joined each other and were conjunct, which is going to be happening, let's bring that up. I think it's in April at some point. I believe, yeah, right around there. So that's April 8th, plus or minus. So for about a week or so, they're going to be within a degree of each other. But right at about 23, 24 degrees Pisces, they're going to join each other for the first time in Pisces since 1856. So it's been a while. This is literally pre-Civil War in the United States. And so it has been a while. And that has a lot of positive potential, okay? A lot of healing potential, a lot of revealing potential. And so that coming just a month or so after that Venus-Mars-Pluto conjunction on the Pluto of the United States, I feel like there's something related there. So it's a kind of a flow of energy, but things are building now, like I said, especially since Venus and Mercury, Venus and Mercury are making conjunctions with Pluto, and that right at the time when Jupiter is entering Pisces. Okay, so feels like what's happening basically this week, and just right around this holiday season, is whatever's happening under the surface is going to be exposed in the springtime. So in the March-April timeframe, and what comes out in April is anybody's guess. But that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces is pretty strong. It's interesting, it lands right on my sun in Pisces my sun in Pisces at 23 degrees. So could be interesting for me personally, but just on a collective level, there's a lot of positive that can come from that. Of course, the negative side of a lot of Pisces energy and amplifying that is themes of deception, okay, and things falling apart. But I think this falling apart could be a huge blessing. I think, with what we've gone through the last couple of years, in 2020 started out with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction right there in Capricorn, and every astrologer out there, including myself, who put out a video about 2020 just prior to it starting, so knew that it was going to be a significant start to this decade of the 2020s here, with that. And of course, with that came COVID and the lockdowns and restrictions associated with it, and the overreach of government, etc. 2021, we had Saturn now broken away from Pluto and Capricorn. It was in Aquarius, where it still is right there, but it's been squaring Uranus and Taurus for most of 2021. In fact, we just had the last exact square between Saturn and Uranus here right around Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, something like that. And they're still within 1 degree orb here today, and they're not gonna form an exact square again in 2022, but they will back into a 1 degree orb again in the fall. So September, October of 2022, Saturn, if we can just scoot up over there, I think it's right around at this point. So there's Saturn, 18 degrees Aquarius, and Uranus 18 degrees Taurus. So they won't be exact, because they're not going to actually be the exact same minute of that degree, but they're going to get within 1 degree of each other. So it'll be, kind of harking back to what 2021 was like. And what 2021 was like was that battle between freedom, Uranus, and authority, which is going to be Saturn, okay? And so there's been a tug of war this whole year, 2021. So where 2020 was kind of laying out this intention, essentially this global intention, right, of total, government overreach, et cetera. That's all that Capricorn energy. 2021 has been this sort of battle, right, between, people and society and authority, and freedom versus that authority, basically, okay? So that theme will come back not quite as strong in the next fall, probably coinciding with, the next cold and flu season of 2022, when that comes back in the fall, right? There could be, talks of more authoritarian measures, et cetera. But because they're not going to make an exact square to each other, we can kind of get a sense that there may be threats of more lockdowns and restrictions, et cetera, that don't come to fruition fully, okay? But what happens here in the spring, before we get there, going back to, again, this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, to me, that has a very exposed kind of energy associated with it, where, like I said, it represents falling apart in a way, that Pisces energy. If you're expanding that disintegration, that's what you can see here. So that could be the falling apart of plans, falling apart of intentions, right? And so, we've, like I said, the last 2 years, it's been like one thing after another that we can't do anymore, that has to change forever, and et cetera, et cetera. And this kind of battle we've had in 2021 with freedom versus authority, and that now we're getting to this point where things might fall apart, which again, and that falling apart could be very revealing, because it could really reveal some intentions, and really show it for what it is. But we should be wary of deception or attempts at deception around that time as well. So I feel like something big could really come through this spring for sure. And it's going to be after this period where, again, both Venus and Mercury, and then eventually Mars in early March, are going to join Pluto right on the United States Pluto. Okay, so right as the United States is going through its Pluto return. So very significant buildup to the spring. So lots of underhanded or below the surface kind of things happening until we get to the spring. There's kind of that reveal energy. Okay. And I also just before we move any further into 2022, just as a wrap up of the eclipses that we just had. So in my last video, I went over the eclipses that would be coming up in November and December, and now we're post eclipse, okay? And it's interesting that especially the December 3rd eclipse, which if we go back, see, where are we here? December 3rd, there it was. So there was the eclipse that happened at about 11, 12 degrees Sagittarius. Let me move it up there. There we go. So right around 12 degrees Sagittarius. And this is a south node eclipse, which denotes sort of a release, okay? And it's in Sagittarius. So we're talking about a release of narrative, a release of belief, a release of things associated with media and information, all things that Sagittarius has to do with. And almost immediately after this eclipse, this release, first was what was his name? Chris Cuomo got let go from CNN. So there's someone in the media spouting narratives, boom, released. Okay, and then you had Brian Williams a couple days later from MSNBC, quits, retires. Okay, so we have this release of old narrative, old information, old people who provide information. Even there was even a switch. Chris Wallace from Fox News went over to CNN. Okay, so like just lots of shakeups with this energy. So that eclipse, it was really, everything was right on point with what we would expect. Also, other developments. Going back to CNN, there was a producer that I don't know if he was brought on charges or whatever it was, but basically accused of sex offender activities with minors, etc. And so this was actually a producer of Chris Cuomo. Okay, so just all this shenanigans in the media. Then there's even because Sagittarius also deals with like higher education, etc. And so there was a Harvard chemist that basically was shown to be lying about his ties to Chinese money, to the Communist Party, etc., when it comes to his research and everything like that. So he got fired. So that's another thing associated with that. And then the final one would be just a couple of days after this eclipse again, there was a someone in Congress is stepping up as the CEO or the head of the new media company coming out under Donald Trump. So if you weren't familiar with that, that's basically, that makes it real essentially, that someone basically quit their job with Congress to now, head this new media. So this is a change in Sagittarian stuff in the media, etc. So that eclipse was pretty powerful. I just wanted to kind of go over that. We're still gonna, in fact, tomorrow, I think, let's see, that's about 12 degrees. So if you go back to right now, yeah, tomorrow, that's when Mars is going to actually hit that point. When Mars hits the point of an eclipse, it usually kind of gives us more of a visual, more of a tangible in our face of what that eclipse represents. And so this is the time, right around now is when that eclipse is showing itself. So all the things I just mentioned, but then, what else comes of that as well. So just as a wrap up of 2021. But again, 2022, our major theme is that Pluto return. Again, it's the US, but the US is a big player in the world stage. And so this Pluto return is going to be hugely significant. And so again, the 3 conjunctions exact happen this year. And right around that first conjunction in February is when we're gonna have, again, because here are in late January 29th, Mercury retrogrades, and it's right on Pluto, right? And now Venus is direct at that point. It goes direct that day, in fact. But it's going to come back and meet with Pluto. But all the while, Mars is waiting in the wings over here in Capricorn at that time, only a month from now, And then we move another month ahead, and then a few days ahead, and then that's when Venus and Mars are joining Pluto right as it's within 1 degree of its own position where it was in the United States chart when the United States was formed. And it's also interesting to note that if you're familiar with the Bavarian Illuminati, okay, this was established in Europe in May of 1776. And since Pluto's a slow mover, this time period is not only the United States Pluto return, but it's the Pluto return for that organization and its intentions. Okay, So this is, the Bavarian Illuminati is all about infiltrating governments, infiltrating corporations, infiltrating to basically, have control on a certain level from behind the scenes, etc. And so what we could also see this year is, again, a breakdown of that, a breakdown and a reveal of, exactly what has been manipulating. Manipulation is a key word for Pluto. What has been manipulating this country in the world all this time. And so there could be a man behind the curtain kind of reveal in this kind of a year. And then, again, bringing us up a month later to that Jupiter Neptune conjunction in Pisces. I mean, this could literally be part of this healing that can go on because of what we have to now face as the truth, essentially. Okay, so there's a lot of potential for release and healing that this can come on the heels of a big reveal, right? So think of it in those terms. Another thing that's happening this year, so it doesn't happen every year, but it's about every 18 months, the nodes, if you notice the node right there is at 1 degree Gemini, they move backwards in the signs. And so that's coming very close to backing into Taurus here, which it will do if we just go up a month and then back a few days. So on January 18th is actually when that node so the north node will switch into Taurus, meaning the south node will be switching into Scorpio. So that's going to switch up the energy a bit. So we've been in this last 18 months, this has been a time of breaking from narratives, breaking from beliefs, and dealing with the facts in front of our face, letting our own eyes and ears tell us what is real and what isn't, rather than entities like a media, etc. And it's not a coincidence that we had an eclipse right on that south node in Sag, and with it, big shifts in the media suddenly start happening. And that's the grand finale here as we move into what's going to be more themed with finances and financial issues, etc. So this is why I mentioned the idea of the petrodollar, and we could see major transformations with that, because in a year like this, or in a year, it's lead us well into 2023 as well. But with the nodes now crossing Taurus and Scorpio, the theme is going to be basically breaking from old debts, essentially, and forging new contracts, new ways of stability in finances. So there might be some breaks from old systems and some implementations of new systems. That's really the way to look at this. So it could be some continued tumultuousness with inflation, etc., things like that. But this is a time period this year and next where things can be done to help fix and stabilize. But it will only be fixing and stabilizing what's broken. So things are going to probably break first, and then they can be fixed. But that's some of the themes we could see this year. Okay, and along with those nodes, we see here that's Uranus and Taurus. So the node's going to back up, and it's going to meet up with Uranus. I believe that's in like late July, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. So there it is, about 18 degrees Taurus, and notice who's coming to the party here. Mars, who right now is up in this zone, and it's going to be making that conjunction to Pluto in early March with Venus. It's going to make its way, and by late July, going to be meeting up with Uranus, just as the node is meeting up with Uranus. So that's going to be the middle of the summer here, is going to be an intense time. Okay, Mars, Uranus, whew, just those two alone, and then it's meeting up with this node. And so there's going to be, I think, some major financial repercussions to this energy that we'll see in the summertime. So it could be a good thing. Like I said, it could be getting online suddenly with new forms of exchange, etc., new contracts, new relationships for exchange, etc. And so we'll see how that plays out. That's pretty intense right there. And it's like I said, we'll see how it plays out. Okay, things are running through my head right now, and that's like when I think of that energy, it's very explosive. Let's put it that way. But I don't want to say anything too negative. Anyway, what else do I want to get to? And so obviously, Mercury is going to retrograde a few times this year, like it usually does. We don't always see Venus retrogrades or Mars retrogrades, but in this year, we're starting out, if we go back to right now, again, Venus is retrograde as we speak. We got another month left of that on the 29th of January. And when we end the year, this year, if we go up to about October or so, now we see Mars there in Gemini. So that's just a couple days away from, it's going to change color here in a second. Once I get the right day in there. There it is. So right on Halloween, it's going to turn retrograde at about 25 degrees Gemini. And so, that retrograde will last into 2023 because Mars retrogrades are a couple months or so. In fact, I think it's going till about the 12th of January, I believe. Yeah, so it's gonna turn direct right about there at 8 degrees Gemini in mid-January of 2023. So point is, we're starting 2022 with a Venus retrograde, and we're going to end 2022 with a Mars retrograde. Okay, so definitely a year of shiftiness. All the while, we've got the Pluto return for the US, and we got this, Uranus North Node conjunction with Mars in the summertime. We've got that Jupiter Neptune conjunction in April in the springtime. So, lots of boom action going on and shifts and changes this year. What else should I talk about here? And just talking about Jupiter. So it's going to fly through Pisces pretty fast here. We're going to, move it back up to about April there. So after the conjunction with Neptune, it's going to keep moving out, and I believe it's like May 10th or something like that. Jupiter enters Aries right around May 10th. And so it just entered Pisces again last night, Tuesday, the 28th of December, and it will be out of Pisces and all the way through on May 10th. Now it will make a comeback here in the later part of the year. I believe it's like late October. So it's going to back into Pisces again, but it's not going to back too far deep. And by the time we get to the end of the year, it's already direct. And then it's entering Aries right around the holidays next year. There we go. So it's going to be in Aries just before the solstice, it looks like. And so, but going back to where it's entering here. So while Jupiter's in Pisces, again, it's going to make that conjunction to Neptune here in April. This is that window for potential healing. Again, healing that comes from the release of the old and accepting the possibilities, the infinite possibilities of the future based on removing those limitations. Okay, and so that's going to be a strong theme here as we push through the winter into the spring. Okay, and then when Jupiter enters Aries for that period from about May 10th to I guess it's late October, around later part of October, that it's going to, things are going to move pretty fast, and that's going to be encompass the time when that Uranus Mars North Node happens in late July. So it's like there's this build up in the beginning of the year, reorganization, and sort of this potential like reveal and healing that goes on. And then things move fast, just lots of fast motion until we get to the fall when things will slow down again. Okay, and there's going to be that pushback with Mars going retrograde, Jupiter backing into Pisces. So expect that kind of a theme of energy. Again, starting with the build-up, reorganization here in the early months of the year. Then this March, April, May kind of like eye-opening reveal, healing time, and then like May to October, especially midsummer, boom, 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 fast motion, things changing fast, and then a pullback in the fall when Jupiter comes back to Pisces, Mars goes retrograde in Gemini, and so the year will end on sort of a slower, more like wheel it in kind of energy associated with it. Okay. So I won't get into the specific Mercury retrogrades and eclipses. We'll just do that throughout the year. It'll be easier to focus on them. But these are the major themes okay, that I've just gone over for 2022. And I don't want to make this video too long. So we're going to probably leave it at that. But that's really, where we want to keep our focus. It's number one, the biggest theme is that Pluto return for the United States, that there's 3 conjunctions this year. It's, I believe it's February 20th, July 11th, and December 28th of 2022 will be the exact conjunctions. And right around that February 20th, that first conjunction, just after that, that's when Pluto is going to be highlighted by both Mars and Venus. Okay, so that's going to be significant there. The other significant thing is the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces. Again, first time that those 2 planets, which are co-rulers of Pisces, are joining each other in forming a conjunction since 1856. So there's bound to be some eye-opening possibilities that open up, and again, the healing that comes from release and what that opens up. Okay, so that's another major theme. Then we have the change of the nodes from Gemini Sagittarius into Taurus Scorpio, in that conjunction to Uranus, specifically in the summertime, which will involve Mars as well. And so it's going to be pretty explosive, pretty, again, it's all happening as Jupiter is in Aries at that time, for a few months there before it backs into Pisces. So things will be moving very fast at that time. And then at the end here, we're going to have the Mars retrograde in Gemini. And so that's just going to have this effect of slowing things down, slowing all that forward progress with Jupiter and Aries, and just kind of like, stepping back, taking a step back to reassess things. Anyway, so I'm going to leave it at that, because again, I don't want it to get super long here. I don't even know how long it's been, by like 30 minutes or something like that. But we want to keep it in that kind of range of time here. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, if you haven't seen Creating Compatibility, the video series that's on my channel, go ahead and watch that. Otherwise, let me know if you have any questions about this, and feel free to share it with anybody, and contact me if you're interested in seeing what 2022 looks like relative to your chart specifically. Like I said, that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction lands right on my sun in Pisces. So that would be an interesting thing to see, like in someone's chart, some of these positions or planets and where they're landing, etc. So feel free to contact me. We can set something up there. And otherwise, enjoy the rest of the holidays. The New Year is coming up here in a couple of days. And this is my overview of the themes astrologically, what we may encounter, and how we might be able to interpret that as it happens. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching and sharing, and I will talk to you soon.